everybody. Today, just want to chat a little bit about an episode we did a few months ago that is no longer on this platform. You may have noticed that if you're a keen comics person viewer of our episode numbers, you may notice that we actually skip a number in our episodes. And number one, this drives me crazy as I'm not a numbers person, but as let's just say a person interested in consistency, drives me insane. But even more frustrating is that episode was actually taken down for violating some kind of loser protocol or something. I don't know what to call it. But basically, we did an episode about erotic comics, and maybe I'll even bleep that out because I don't know. Who knows what you can even put on this platform anymore. So we have an episode that we did that's about erotic comics, and within a couple hours of it being posted, first of all, I think it's a great episode. I think it's really interesting. I'm a fan of all of our episodes, but I think that one in particular is really good. So it was even more frustrating when that one got taken down. And I think that episode is really great for a number of reasons. Number one, I don't think in the United States you get that many opportunities to talk about kind of comics that have sex in them or nudity in them. I think this is such a puritanical, bizarre place that stuff is just constantly kind of pushed off to the side. And so I think that's something we really wanted to shed some light on, because there is some incredible artwork going on in the world of erotica, and I think things tend to get lumped into just sort of like pornography, or I don't know, just pornography. I think anytime someone draws anyone engaging any kind of like sexual activity, automatically gets grouped into this like pornography category, which is not, I don't want to say it's not fair, because like, that's kind of what these platforms are all, they're self-run, they're self-regulating, they can do whatever they want, but it's just lame. I don't know, it's just so lame. And it stifles conversation about these things. And I mean, we could get into all kinds of other conversations about how, like, obviously abstinence education is really harmful, and like people need to know about these kinds of different things. And I don't know, when you start preventing people from being able to engage with art for things, I think that's doing people like an enormous disservice. And I think especially for tricky things like sexuality or just like the sexual act in general, like, yeah, obviously pornography exists. There's nothing wrong with pornography, like that's its own kind of thing. And I guess I understand why these platforms want to limit the amount of whatever they would consider pornography to be on the platform. I think it's disingenuous for them to say it's to protect kids or children from some sort of content, because obviously there's all kinds of violence is allowed. I mean, Nick and I are not violence purveyors. We don't like killing or guns or anything, but we have talked about violent comics on this show, and we have shown some pretty insane stuff, not necessarily championing it, but we've shown it on the show, and YouTube has had no problem with it whatsoever. But the second we do an episode about eroticism and nudity and bodies, it gets flagged immediately. I think only maybe 20 or 30 people actually saw it before it was taken down. We were not offered, but there isn't a way to appeal it, and so I clicked on the appeal button. You don't get to say why, you don't get to talk to anybody. You just click the appeal button and you say like, appeal now, and then they say no, and then that's the end of it, which is frustrating. So anyway, so I think when you limit people's ability to talk about these things through art, you're cutting people off from an enormous resource that they might have to engage with things that are tricky and that are confusing. And sexuality is confusing, and like engaging in these kinds of sexual acts is really confusing. And especially now, I think like young people really need exposure to things that are challenging and confusing to help them make up their own minds and help them understand kind of like things like consent and things that are healthy ways to engage in these things. And when the answer is just no, you can't show anything, you're making it difficult for people to be able to get important information and engage with these things in a safe space. These are all drawings. We're not looking at, hardcore shit or whatever. Like, not that there's anything wrong with that either, but all the artwork we looked at was all drawings. Like, there were no actual people involved in any of them. And actually the thing, I don't know if this was just because it was early in the episode, but the thing that they flagged as being the thing that got it taken down was like maybe the most tame thing that's in the whole episode. Like, we looked at some Gengaro Tagami drawings later in the episode that are so fucking insane. But the thing that got flagged was basically just two people having sex in like a doggy style position and enjoying it. There's nothing strange about it. And actually the thing, I should have screen captured this. I think I did screen capture this, but then I got deleted it because I was so mad about it. But the thing that YouTube said was actually that you're not allowed to show two people enjoying a sexual act. It specifically said enjoying, which I thought was weird. And that probably means they're probably trying to differentiate between like just nude people who are, I don't know, sunbathing or something, and people who are actually having like some sort of sexual activity. But the fact that they said enjoying, I thought was so weird. Like, if you show some sort of like assault, is that okay? I mean, we weren't looking at anything like that. I don't know, it's just really bizarre, and it's just so lame. So I just wanted to put this episode up here because what we ended up doing is we put the episode on archive.org. And we didn't put up this episode that I'm making right now first because we weren't sure how long it would stay on archive, but it's been up there. They don't seem to have any issues with it. Archive is full of all kinds of like wild sexuality related things, old magazines and stuff like that. So when you're done watching our episode, go ahead and dig around on archive. Archive is just also like a completely spectacular resource for anything. I think one of the most precious things that exists on the internet is archive.org. I don't totally know how all of it manages to avoid copyright issues and stuff like that, but also I don't give a shit because it's awesome. And it's like the actual library of the internet. You can find so much awesome shit. They have the Wayback Machine, which has basically versions of websites in their entirety that you can kind of look at. I mean, there was a rap website that I looked at a lot in college called Hip Hop Infinity that recently one of my friends alerted me to, which was like, you can go look at Hip Hop Infinity, which no longer exists, but you can look at it on the Wayback Machine, which is just really cool, I think, to be able to kind of, it's like going to your old elementary school or something. You can go like browse around these old parts of the internet that you haven't been to in a million years. It's really cool. Anyway, archive is great, and at least so far not beholden to the losers who seem to be in charge of every other corner of the internet. And so we wanted to make sure people got a chance to see that episode. So this is basically a placeholder episode. I'm just doing a little drawing here and trying to chat about this, but we highly encourage you to go to the link. We're going to post the link to the archive episode in the description here, and I can't imagine why that would get us in any trouble, but hopefully that stays up, and this will be kind of like a place that will kick some people out to go check out that episode too. And it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of a bummer. Like, it's a bummer to feel like restricted and feel like you can't talk about these things, and just that things are limited at all. Doesn't really feel like, I grew up in the 90s and in the 2000s, and this kind of thing never occurred to me. The internet was like, wow, this is the kind of playground and this is the kind of space that like we need as a society to be able to openly communicate with each other. Now, that being said, I understand the need to regulate certain things in certain ways. I'm not one of those free speech people who is like, oh, you should be able to say anything anywhere to anybody. Like, I don't mean that kind of thing, but there needs to be some kind of room for common sense, I guess. Like, I don't understand why. I've never been able to understand why violence is okay and sex is not. And I just will never understand that, except because of the obvious fact, which is, the United States is a violence machine, and we control our people through violence, and the government needs to get us to accept violence so that we accept the violence they perpetrate on other people. And, I understand all of that. So yeah, just give it a shot. Check it out. If you want to comment about it on this episode page, you can do that. We're happy to talk about it with you. If you have other thoughts on whether these kinds of things should be allowed to be talked about here. The other thing is, like, we can't even talk about it on here. Like, if we put up an episode and someone's offended by it, tell us about it. I want to have that conversation. That's interesting to me, because I'm a certain type of person. You're a certain type of person. I don't want to say desensitized, but I'm an extremely open-minded person, and I've watched a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of kind of extreme art and stuff like that, and I'm more than willing to admit that there are things that don't bother me that do bother other people, and I'm interested in that. So if in this episode or any other one, if we do post something that bothers you or annoys you, like, please tell us. I'm not going to tell you to fuck off or anything. And I know Nick feels the same. Like, that's the interesting part. Like, let's have that conversation. But when the thing gets taken down and you don't have a chance to talk about it, I don't even know, like, is anybody even offended by that? Or is it just the YouTube powers that be have just decided this thing? Like, I would be shocked if anybody saw, I can't even post it here, so we can't even see what it looks like, but I would be shocked if anybody saw that drawing. Anyone on earth saw that drawing and was like, ugh, I'm offended. Like, especially considering there were other things in that episode that I would kind of understand. Like, if somebody saw a Tagame drawing of, a guy getting, like, all kinds of things shoved into his genitals and then, like, screaming about it, like, that's wild. I mean, part of what we talked about in the episode is, like, why do people draw this stuff? That's wild. I'm not offended by it, but it's crazy is the wrong word. I don't think it's crazy, but it's fascinating. It's fascinating that somebody would want to draw that. And that's interesting. And so I think, like, having a conversation about me being like, oh, I have this book that I bought that has this wild drawing in it, and somebody else saying, like, I don't know why anybody would draw that, and it offends me. The fact that we can both be looking at the same thing and be sort of interested in it but feeling wildly different about it, that to me is super interesting. But if you can't look at the thing, you can't have the conversation. It's like trying to argue about, I don't know, food that you ate. Like, you can't tell someone something was gross if you haven't, and then the other person say it's not gross if you haven't both eaten the same food. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but that's kind of what it feels like. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know where this is all headed. This is sort of a little bit of a censorship rant, I guess, but I feel very strongly that we should be able to have these conversations with each other about things that make us feel icky, because that's also the way that we can help each other feel less icky about things. Like, people have sex, people hook up with each other, people cross boundaries, people do things that people do things that they probably shouldn't do, but if they don't know that they shouldn't do it, they're just going to do it. Human beings have these sexual impulses. People are gonna do this stuff, and if you don't have ways to engage with these things, it's just going to make it harder on everybody else. And I think we like to pretend that we're having some sort of cultural conversation about post Me Too America or something, but we're not. Like, we're not having that conversation at all. We just sort of said, like, these few people are bad, and we fixed it, and that's it. We're good now. But we didn't address anything. We didn't come up with any kind of, like, standards. But that's why art is so cool, because you can do it by example. Like, you can't have, it becomes really tricky to have rules in all these circumstances. And I think that's why if you just tell, like, a teenager, you can do this and you can't do that, like, doesn't work for anything else. Teenagers don't listen to anything. So, like, just telling people what to do doesn't work. And I think when we have art that kind of engages with these different things, it can lead by example, and it can help people reach those conclusions on their own, rather than having to fight against some sort of impulse because they've been told that it's bad or it's dirty or it's evil or something like that. Like, or just because they're unfamiliar with it. Like, I'm sure there's so many people have had these instances where they come across these situations and they just literally don't know what to do, and either they do nothing or they do the wrong thing, But to have these reference points, I think, is really valuable. Now, that being said, we do look at some comics in this episode that are maybe like not so valuable in that cultural sense. They're just sort of bizarre things that, I don't know, people wanted to draw, but that's also really fascinating to me. You know, maybe those artists are working something out. Maybe they're just sort of interested in the body. Maybe they're just playing around with these things, you know, like I do myself included. Like, I love drawing the body, and I draw all kinds of like wild kind of sexual and pseudo-sexual things, and they're not coming from any sort of active place in my mind. I'm not saying like, oh, I really want to draw this person that I saw, you know. I'm not like recreating some sort of real life circumstance. I'm just sort of exploring the body, and like that stuff is interesting too. And to see artists who have those similar sort of impulses is really fascinating to me, and it's really inspiring because it makes me feel less like these things need to be hidden. You know, it's fun to see other artists who are exploring these same kinds of things, and then to meet those people and talk about that with them is really cool, because just like any other kind of art, it makes you feel, you know, less alone, or like you're not the only person that has these feelings and these thoughts, because we're not. Like, everyone has these thoughts. Even the most psychotic, Bible thumping, anti whatever Tipper Gore type person, they still do it. Like, they still engage in the activity. Like, I don't know. So anyway, I'm gonna finish this drawing. I guess I'll time lapse the rest of it probably. And go check out the episode if you have a chance. And if you want to talk about any of that stuff, you can contact us in various different places. I don't know how much longer we're going to be on Instagram. That place is just such a horrible thing. And me personally, I've been shifting my personal account over to Blue Sky, so I think I'll be over there. But you can message us on the Instagram for Comics People. We'll probably keep that up for a while, whether we use it that often or not. Who knows? But so please, like, let's have a conversation about it. That's why we do these things. That's why we make the episodes. That's why we put them out there. We want to talk about them with you. So if there are things that you find interesting that we didn't talk about, if there are things that you think are gross or whatever, like, let's have that conversation. We're here for it. All right, that's enough rambling from me. Talk to you later.